Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, drop a comment. I would love for you to introduce yourself. And if you're returning, welcome back. My name is Amanda for the new people here. And I'm pretty excited about today's topic. I think this is a topic that has actually been very important and very vital to my healing journey in general, and kind of like getting to the root of a lot of things and patterns that I've needed to unpack. And that happens to be resurfacing old childhood memories in particular. And why that happens and what that means, especially if you're somebody who has complex PTSD, trauma of any kind, and especially trauma-related memory loss. So, if you're on a healing journey yourself, I do want to ask you, have you ever thought to yourself that, I have a pattern, I have like a way that I feel about something, or something upsets me, or I feel really uncomfortable with this, and I'm not exactly sure where or why that started. And perhaps one day you have a memory that just kind of resurfaces out of nowhere, and then you're just like, oh, that's why. Right? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but that's okay. Either which way, we're gonna talk about exactly how you deal with that and why that happens. But typically, this memory resurfaces that we had like long forgotten about and like just kind of buried in the back of our mind, and then it resurfaces, and then it just makes a lot more sense in the context of who we are today. And that is because that is your inner child tapping you on the shoulder and saying like, hey, remember this? Like, I want to talk about it. Like, I think we should talk about it. And I think reconnecting with your inner child is one of the most powerful ways in order to get in touch with that and rediscover who you authentically are. I say this is very, very critically important to people who have complex PTSD and trauma-related memory loss, because so much of our identity is kind of wrapped up in survival and the person that we created to survive, and not so much based on who we authentically are. And I have found that people like myself that, have kind of grown up in very like toxic family dynamics, and then end up with people who kind of recreate that dynamic as well, contribute to us kind of becoming like a watered down like shell version of ourselves. We may kind of still just be like ourselves. It is still not as potent and lively and colorful as perhaps it was in the past, because we've just sort of learned to adapt to the environments that we are in. Because I think with that, you just learn that it's just not safe to be yourself, or all of yourself. And for those that don't know, complex PTSD is something that essentially develops to, or in response to, prolonged exposure to trauma. And, that can also just include emotional neglect and just other ongoing abuse. And this often starts in childhood. And if you are someone with complex PTSD, you will often experience emotional flashbacks, and these often don't have a particular memory associated with it. It's like you have the feeling, but no tangible memory to relay it back to. But when you're relaxed and you're doing something joyful or meaningful, or just anything that you really enjoy, or you're really just present and relaxed and maybe not even, doing anything at all, but you just feel calm and present, then they're going to tap you on the shoulder. And I'll give you some personal examples. So, and this is all like pretty recently at that too. So there was one day when I was kind of feeling just out of sorts and just feeling very stressed about like a lot of things just generally happening in life. And my husband said, well, I'm going to take you out to breakfast, to brunch, to your favorite spot. You get whatever you want. We're going to have a good time, have some coffee. The weather's beautiful. We'll go drive around, walk around, hang out. And I'm just like, oh, that's what I want to hear. But a part of me is like, are you sure? Like, can we do that? Are you all right with that? And he's just like, yeah, absolutely. So great. And awesome little brunch spot that was in downtown West Palm Beach and is no longer there, sadly, called Yoke. It was the brunch spot that we went to right after we got married and eloped. Awesome little place. And I got the breakfast mac and cheese that they have. It is absolutely stellar. And we got some coffee, I think from Starbucks, and just hung out in just kind of like in the middle of it. It was like fucking Raven from That's So Raven when she just like has a vision. And I'm just like, I remembered like something that my father had said to me when I was a kid that essentially was just kind of like ultimately very discouraging to my desires to, wanting to be like an actress or a singer. I think it just really had to do with fame in general. Yeah, that's what it was. So he's just like, you don't want to be famous. You think you do, but you don't. It was more or less the conversation. And it wasn't so much that like I want just fame for the sake of fame, but it's like, I think I had this idea of like wanting to be like a singer, actress, like a performer of sorts. And I just wanted to be the best. And I think there's really nothing wrong with that. But I think, that kind of requires people knowing who you are. I think that's just kind of like a byproduct of what comes with that. And even like, I think with YouTube, even, being a very successful YouTuber, even though I think everybody has their own definitions of like what success is and what that looks like. But, I think doing well is going to require that people like know who you are in large quantities. Fame, like anything, is just a tool, right? Anyway, my father, I had realized, said a lot of things like that, and it was ultimately very discouraging and ultimately formed this very, very heavy belief that maybe this is not for me. That maybe what I want is not actually for me. And while it may seem like a small moment, it really did just change the fabric of myself, my dreams, my desires, and how I moved through life. Which is ultimately what I believed about myself. And I even think for me at the time, like, yeah, it didn't seem like a big deal. Just seemed like a very casual conversation between me and my father. And but it was critical. That day when my inner child tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, remember that? I want us to think about that. It's them just saying like, hey, it's time to process this. And it's like, I did have this overwhelming sense of grief because it's like I understood what it all meant, like right at that point. And I think that's normal and fair and fine. And you do kind of have to take the time to grieve it and process it and even be angry about it. Because somebody that was, supposed to support me, encourage me, and instill the idea that, I am safe and allowed to pursue things in order to see them through and find myself in it. But instead, they discouraged me from like projecting their own issues, essentially, which that's something parents do sometimes. I personally have had to sort of grieve that and even just be absolutely angry about it and then let it go. So when these resurface, they give you a context of like what it is, where it started, why it started. It will often happen with me too that like I know maybe something happened between like a family member and myself, and I know how it made me feel, because that tends to never go away. And I know that if I do have to be around them, at least in the past when I've had to be around these people, it's like I can still feel that, even if I can't remember exactly why anymore. And it's a very odd thing. And also kind of just similarly, when I am put in particular situations and I may feel a certain way towards something, but yet I'm not sure why. And I'm not sure where it comes from. And sometimes it can just sort of be in very unassuming situations as well. It's also kind of odd and scary because it does just feel like you're there in it and like it's maybe happening again, even though it's not. Essentially, when there are memories that you can't quite get to, or just big gaps in your life that you can't remember, that's just you being in survival mode, and you shoved those somewhere so you can process it later. Your inner child cannot get to you because you're way too focused on staying safe in the now. And it's a lot more difficult to access those lost parts of yourself. But when your nervous system feels calm, regulated, safe, and present, among other things, your inner child sees that as an opening. And you can think about it this way. I'm sure this has happened to all of us as well. When you were a kid and you maybe wanted to, let's say, go hang out with your friends and wanted to maybe stay the night at your friend's house, or just go out and do something with your friends, or just anything, you name it. You're just like, all right, I'm going to go ask mom, dad, or whoever maybe your guardian was. And you see they're in a bad mood. And you're just like, oh, I should probably wait until they're not in a bad mood or stressed or whatever it may be, and I'll wait until later when they're maybe in a better mood. That's your inner child doing the same thing to you. You're stressed, anxious, don't feel safe. Like, they feel way too stressed as well. You're stressed, your inner child is stressed, so they don't feel safe to talk to you. Using that same example of my father kind of projecting all of that onto me, my fear of visibility and being perceived and being seen, like, it wasn't just a random insecurity. It's something that I developed as like a defense survival mechanism. Once you start to realize that and understand it, then you can start to release it. And it's up to you to hold on to it or let it go. I think it is also important to understand that something that is so entangled and has gone, like for me, essentially 28 years without really being like given the attention, it can take a little bit of time to like really understand what it is and what the right steps to take care of that is. But I really do think it is that simple, that once you understand it and know how to rework it and reframe all of it, you can let it go. But as I say, we are all human, so forgive yourself if that takes some time. I would encourage you to do more of what you love. Relax. Find ways to do things that you enjoy and speak to your inner child. Doing things you love. And you can keep it really simple. Like even just sitting in the sun and taking note of everything that you're hearing, seeing, feeling. And if you're somebody who likes to write, and even if you are maybe still even a state of like survival mode and you find it hard to like tap into that creative place, because it is very hard to tap into that creative place when you are in survival mode. Because I tell you what, I do consider myself a writer. I have been writing poetry since middle school. And it's one of my favorite things in the entire world to do. And I've written many, many poems. So I have found it very difficult over the past handful of years, I would say at least, to like really consistently write compared to like the rest of my life, to where I used to be able to just spit several out a day. And I feel like I'm lucky to do several a year, at least in like I said, the past handful of years. With that said, say you do consider yourself a writer, then, you know, try journal prompts if you find it hard to tap into that organic, creative state. If you're somebody who likes to draw or paint or anything like that, but again, you find it hard to do so right now, get a fucking coloring book. Like, that's fun as fuck too. And like, I think you can really get into a flow state with that and really not have to think about it as much, and it does just feel good to do. So whatever you love, take it to its most simplistic form just to get into that flow state. And you would be amazed by what can happen and what kind of moments of clarity can happen just from really just finding a way to tap in. And once you do, if you get those moments of clarity, sit with it. Sit with it. I'm gonna say it again. Sit with it. Because sometimes these can be jarring when they happen, especially if they're kind of like unpleasant. It can be like, oh, fuck. I've been pretty lucky that, like, I guess when those moments have happened with me, like, I've been with my husband and I can kind of just be like, this is what just occurred to me. And he's very open to like listen and like exchange dialogue about that. And that makes sense because, you know, my husband is somebody that I feel very safe around to kind of have those conversations with, and we have those conversations together all the time. Like, and he, like, when he has those, like, he does that with me too. It is likely that it will kind of just happen, like, in those moments where you do feel relaxed and chill, and you are just able to process that. If it catches you by surprise, like, it really is okay to just take a moment to just sit with it and really acknowledge it, be curious about it, and take some steps to do that later. If you have a coach or a therapist, like, that's something to kind of just like take note of and maybe like put it down somewhere, like maybe in your phone, and hash it out with them. And like, that's a great way to go over that too. But get curious about it and really ask yourself, like, okay, clearly this is important. So why is this coming up now? Like, what does this mean for me? How does this apply to my life? Because surely it does. But the more you regulate yourself and make space for joy and the things that you love and bring you a sense of peace, the easier it becomes to hear your inner child. And I would even think about the shit that your inner child loved doing. If you can remember the things that you loved to do as a kid, fucking try it. You never know. So the good news is, even if you feel like you have maybe sort of lost your sense of identity, especially if you are someone that has gone through complex PTSD, trauma, what have you, or you really just feel like you aren't living your most authentic self for whatever reason. The good news is you don't have to create that from scratch. Your authentic self is just who you were before the world taught you who to be. And that inner child, that's the whole key. That's the whole map to finding you again and just to bring you back to them. That's all I've got for today, and I hope this was helpful. I know it's been really helpful for me, and it's really helped me just kind of gather some direction on myself and understanding like my desires over again. And let me know in the comment section, like, how do you connect with your inner child and how has it helped you grow and heal? Anyways, until the next time, guys. Mwah. And I almost forgot, but I also have a different video that talks about the inner child and like the soul, the higher self, and the ego that kind of ties like all aspects of, you know, the self, the inner world, and what that role plays like on our healing journey and the way we move through life and everything like that. So if you want to learn more about the inner child and all of those like other aspects, since we kind of talked a lot about the inner child in this video, definitely check that one out. I'll have it linked somewhere at the end of this video, and it's probably hanging out somewhere. Anyways, bye for real this time.